Hey guys, welcome to Arcran's Arcanum. Today we're going to be talking about portals and how you can use one to make an interesting boss fight. By the end of this video, you're going to have a ready-made portal to the location of your choice that you can torture your players with next session. So let's start with the basics. Portal is just going to be a gate between wherever your players are and somewhere else. And that somewhere else is probably some nasty place that happy people don't go. The Nine Hells, an elemental plane, something like that. We're going to start giving the portal a stat block, and it's going to look a little strange because it's not going to look entirely like a normal creature, but I promise things will make sense in the end. The first thing we have to come up with is what creature type is the portal. Is it a fiend? Is it an elemental? Is it fey? And this is a pretty easy choice. Wherever your portal goes to, look at what lives there. That's the type your portal is. And this isn't a huge choice, but there's a lot of abilities that key off creature type. So it's a good thing to establish just in case. Our portal goes to the Nine Hells, so it's a fiend with the devil subtype. And that's it, we're done with that. Next up, we want to come up with size, and this is going to be important for just how strong the portal is, because some of the things later in the video do key off of that. So if you have a low level party, like levels 1 to 4, you're going to want a medium portal. Large is going to be that like 5 to 10 range, 11 to I think 16-ish, you probably want a huge portal, and anything higher than that, you want a gargantuan, or like 2 portals, 3 portals, all the portals. By then your players are basically gods, so just throw the whole house at them. For our hypothetical Nine Hells portal, let's say we have a normal 4-person party at level 6. So we are going to want a large portal. The next thing we have to come up with is AC and hit points, because until something has hit points, you can't kill it. That's just how Dungeons and Dragons works. For AC, just go with, a set 14 plus 1 for every size above medium the portal is. For hit points, you're going to look at how many squares your portal should cover on a map and multiply that by 30, and that's how many hit points you get. A medium portal, 1 square, 30 hit points. Our large portal is 4 squares, so 120 hit points. It might seem like a lot, but this is something that, it should take some damage to beat. It's got a lot of health, it's very durable, it's just a magical gateway. It should be hard to kill. If you have a particularly large party, you might need to bump that hit point pool up even higher, just because more players means more actions, and that means more damage. The next few things are all going to be pretty quick. Speed is 0. Unless you want your portal flying around, it doesn't have a speed, so it doesn't move. Damage, immunities, resistances, and weaknesses we're going to touch on later in a lot more depth than the stuff we're doing in this section. Condition immunities, it's just immune to everything. It's not alive, it doesn't have a brain, it can't be paralyzed, it can't be stunned, it can't be anything, it's just there. Right now we kind of just have a big bag of hit points, and that's not an interesting encounter. We need to add things that'll make the portal engage with the players in interesting ways, and vice versa. The first thing we need to do is kind of just limit what can hurt it, because when the players have to specifically pick what they do, it gets a bit more interesting. The first avenue we want to kind of flesh this out for is just direct damage. So right off the bat, let's make the portal immune to poison and psychic damage. It doesn't have a body, it doesn't have a mind, it makes sense that those damage types aren't going to do much to it. Our next step is just going to be to make it resistant to basically everything else. And we're going to change this later. This isn't the end stat block, this is just the basic template at the start. By making it resistant to most things, we can make players pick different damage types than they might normally use. Just as a safety net, we're going to make it take normal damage from force damage and magical weapons. And this is just so that A, you have kind of just a safety net, and B, so your barbarian doesn't decide they need to kill you in real life because they can't do anything against the portal. Now that we have a good baseline, we're going to want to tailor our portal to the specific location it leads to. The easiest way to do this is just going to be to find a creature from that plane and kind of use that as a reference point for the next few steps. So we're going to use an imp for our Nine Hells portal because that's just a common thing that lives there. Looking at that, we can see that imps are immune or resistant to cold, fire, and poison, and we want our portal to be at least as tough as things that come from the plane that it leads to, so let's just make our portal immune to all of those. Now that we've kind of beefed up the defenses of the portal, we need to add some weaknesses and ways to hurt it other than just magical weapons and force damage. Fortunately, the imp kind of just has a built-in weakness. Silver can hit it. It doesn't do any extra damage, but it bypasses all the resistances, so that seems like a good thing to start with. So we're gonna go magical weapons and silver weapons. The next thing we want to do is, and this should be for every portal, we want a weakness. We want something that's going to hit it for double damage and really hurt it so your players can prepare and pick the right spells and get that really rewarding puzzle solving experience. For a portal to the Hells, I think radiant damage probably makes the most sense. That's kind of just, the thing that hurts devils and demons a bit more if we look at a paladin smite or something like that. And it plays into the fiction well, where our paladins and clerics are going to be very good at helping to close the portal, which is a nice little mechanics matching up with the fiction we are all playing in. And that kind of covers our ways to hurt it with direct damage, so now we're going to get into the little bit weirder stuff, and the first thing is going to be giving the portal a special trait. The gist of it is, because our portal doesn't really have stats, we don't want it rolling saving throws because it can't. So no matter what kind of spell your players use, they are rolling to hit, which is counterintuitive and you might have to explain to them, but it'll be easier that way. For saving throw spells, they still take half damage even if they miss, so we're keeping that a little bit. The big thing this does is it gives us a way to make sure that all spells actually work against something with no real stats, and it also, if you look at the last couple lines, provides a way for non-damaging spells to hurt the portal. Since our portal is just a bag of hit points, we need to just convert spells into damage for them to work against it. And I would suggest always having Banishment and Dispel Magic work against the portals. Banishment because it sends things back to their home plane, and a portal is kind of, the avenue between. And Dispel Magic because it's a magic portal, Dispel Magic should work. And really the whole point of the last couple lines is so players can use spells in new and hopefully creative ways. This gives you a nice easy framework for how you can convert a normally non-damaging spell into hurting the portal. For our 9 Hells portal, we would probably let spells that are kind of just infusing divine essence to work on it, so like Bless should work, Sanctuary maybe, spells that are all just very good, very holy, and also spells that specifically work well against demons, so Protection from Good and Evil is a very good example of that. And please, please, please do not try to make a list of every spell that would work. You will drive yourself crazy. There's a lot of spells in 5th edition, but if you just kind of give yourself a couple keywords and also convey those keywords to your players either through an NPC, through a book, or just, making them roll Arcana to see what might work, then you can have a very quick and dirty way to have a lot of different spells affect the portal and contribute to the fight. At this point, we have a really good framework for how we can attack it directly and how we can kind of indirectly attack it with non-combat spells, which really only leaves one more way that your players might try to hurt the portal, and that's through skills and items. And both of these we're just going to lump into ability checks, and if it makes sense to roll that skill against the portal, it's just going to take damage equal to the result of the roll. So say your cleric wants to exorcise the portal, and you have him roll religion as he recites the prayer, and it takes however much damage he rolls. It's a nice quick and easy way for your players to use an action, especially your players that are spec'd more into skills to contribute interesting ways. And this is another one where, just like the spells, you should be flexible in this. Let your players be creative, let them do interesting things. If they come up with something particularly clever, or if it just makes sense, give them advantage. In our example with the 9 Hells portal, we've established that silver can hurt it a bit more than other things, so if a player comes up with a creative idea using something made of silver, give them advantage on the roll, let them do a little bit more damage. We'll define a new trait for this, and this is more just so when you're looking at the stats as you run the session, you'll remember. And again, letting your players be creative with this is really important. My players were trying to close a portal to the plane of law, and they decided to do the most chaotic things they could think of, and the most chaotic thing they could think of doing was mooning the portal, and that did damage to it. Was it silly? Sure. Was it fun and memorable? Absolutely. And with that, you have 3 good ways for your players to hurt the portal in a more interesting way and let them kind of flex their creative muscles. And no matter what you do, you should try to convey, the different immunities, resistances, vulnerabilities, and just kind of the general themes of what spells and skills might work against the portal to your players ahead of time through just normal skill rolls, and your players just know it, or NPCs. Your players should kind of know what they're going into, otherwise this might be an unfair encounter. And if they have the chance to prepare for it, they get that nice little satisfaction of preparing and things working. Right now we have excellent ways for our players to hurt the portal, but nothing it can really do back to them yet. And that's what we need to resolve now. We're going to be basing how the portal acts heavily on layer actions. If you don't know how layer actions work, they're kind of just a normal action that affects the entire battlefield, and instead of happening at whatever initiative the creature rolled, it just happens at a set initiative. We're not going to actually give our portal any normal actions because we don't want it rolling initiative. It's just always going to do 1 layer action at initiative 20, and 1 layer action at initiative 10. These are going to be different sets of actions, and we'll explain how to come up with both of those. When coming up with the initiative 20 layer action, you're going to want to make it something that the portal adds to the fight, and it's just going to be bringing more enemies in. The way you're going to do this is you're going to go down to the description, and you're going to go to Kobold Fight Club, and that is a lovely tool for balancing encounters, and you're going to come up with 3 encounters that would qualify as easy according to that tool. And easy encounters normally aren't a big deal, but remember, there's hopefully things near the portal already, and these fights probably aren't just going to be resolved in one turn, so it's going to be compiling and building, but because it's staggered, it's not quite as hard. For our 9 Hells portal, looking at Kobold Fight Club, let's say we still have that same level 6 party, 2 Spine Devils, easy encounter, perfect, 3 Imps, also an easy encounter, or a single Barb Devil. So each turn at initiative 20, one of those 3 groups of creatures is going to come out of the portal and join the fight, and roll initiative for them as normal, have them act. The other nice thing about this is you can kind of use this to balance the fight on the fly. If things are going really well for your players and the fight's too easy, make the next little chunk of reinforcements that comes out a little bit tougher. If your players are getting stomped, maybe make the reinforcements coming out of the portal not as powerful. That's a really good way to balance the fight on the fly, and it's a very useful tool as a dungeon master to be able to balance fights as it goes on turn to turn. The layer action initiative 10 is going to be a lot more traditional and look more like layer actions that you've probably seen in the monster manual. Again, you're going to want to come up with 3 of them. For our first option, we're going to want this to be a direct damage option that hits everything near the portal. This is going to be a bit up in the air for like what type of damage you use, but in general, pick something that stuff coming out of the portal is going to be resistant or immune to, just so you have a nice little home field advantage. Going to our 9 Hells portal, fire damage makes sense. Just do a flat 2d6 per size category of the portal. So for our large size portal, that's going to be 46 damage. For the saving throw, just make the DC equal to whatever your armor class for the portal is. Just continue to use that number. That's a nice, good number, balanced, kind of around where your party should be. And the actual type of saving throw will just depend on the type of damage. For fire, dexterity saving throw makes sense. Your second layer action should be something that discourages attacking the portal or makes it harder. This is probably going to be in the form of some kind of status condition. It's going to depend a bit on what your portal is, but it's going to be something that either limits movement, makes it hard to approach the portal, or makes it hard to attack it. Looking at the abilities that things from the Hells have, some kind of fear effect makes sense for our example. So let's make a DC 15, continue to use that same number that we used previously, wisdom saving throw for everything within 30 feet of the portal, otherwise they are frightened of it, and we just put that normal, you can make another save at the end of your turn caveat that almost all fear effects have. The final layer action should be something that messes with the order and flow of the battle in a way that helps the things coming out of the portal. This can either be changing how some spells work, it can be making certain types of damage more or less effective. In our case, a lot of devils do fire damage, and most of them are immune to the fire damage. So let's make, as a layer action, the portal makes all fire spells do an extra 10 damage until the end of its next turn. It's a very basic effect that also helps the devil's strategy and doesn't do much to help the players. And with that, you now have a portal that has a bunch of different ways to hurt it and interesting ways for your players to deal with that. At initiative 20, it's going to summon reinforcements. At initiative 10, it's going to do something to impact the battlefield, and you now have an encounter with a very large, very thematic set piece. Also make sure that you put something near the portal to protect it to start with. It doesn't need to be a hard encounter, it can just be plugging into Kobold Fight Club, something medium, cultists, some things that have already come out of the portal. You need to have something defending it, otherwise your players can kind of just bum rush the portal and close it before it gets to do anything interesting. 2 things to keep in mind. The portal cannot use the same layer action 2 turns in a row. That's just a little stipulation on how layer actions work. You can't just keep spamming that fire damage option, sorry. And the other thing to keep in mind is that use the reinforcements as a way to balance your fight on the fly. If your players are getting hit really hard, weaker reinforcements. If they're stomping things, maybe throw something a little bit scarier at them. Let's throw the sample portal we've been building over the course of this video up on the screen, just so you have a nice, easy reference point at the end. And hopefully if you've been following along, you have your own portal and you already have interesting ideas on how you can work this into your campaign. I've used this a lot in my game. I think they make very interesting encounters, and I hope you're able to use them, enjoy them, and also terrorize your players with an unconventional encounter. If you have any questions about how the portals work, or if there's other videos that you want to see me cover in the future, please leave a comment below. Or if you do use these portal rules in your game, please let me know how they go in the comments. I would love to know how this works in other people's games. Otherwise, thanks for stopping by the Arcanum, and have a good day.